Hey everybody, this is David from the Proof of Pod Editing Studio. You are watching part three of our three-part interview with Noah Healy. Today we talk about blockchain dystopias, disasters, and forks. Please enjoy. The same technology that allows the company to say that you had the highest sales total for the quarter could also allow the company to say that you were drunk on the job all the time, even if you weren't.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the tales I saw on social credit systems, because of course the Chinese actually have one, was a guy who was driving into work and he noticed that one of the recently graduated Chinese interns was walking, and so the second day he pulls up by them and says, "Hey, I'm on my way to work. I can just give you a lift, the last 5 blocks or whatever." And they pulled up their like Fitbit or whatever, and it was like, I have to get my steps in for the social credit score. This is this is in California. So this person is a Chinese national, but they're working in California. They have to do things to keep their social credit score high, or in or a government on a different continent is going to ruin their lives for them.
Right,
Uh, you know, th- that's getting pretty dystopic, and that's something that apparently has already happened.
right.
So, uh, again, I don't necessarily think we need to jump in with both feet on some of these ideas.
Okay, so since we're talking about the dystopic things, I wanted to ask, what are some examples that you don't think are fit for a blockchain, or some failures that have occurred?
Well, the meme coins, I would say, are very public failures so far. None of them have really, sort of, the best of them have risen to Ponzi scheme status, and many of them haven't even gotten that far. Um, the while while Satoshi did come up with a fairly ingenious technical recursively stable system, I am not convinced that he came up with a culturally, economically recursively stable system. And so I would actually say that the current attempts to use blockchains as currencies or currency replacements would wouldn't be things that could have long-term success, because there are still technical and cultural problems to solve. Um, and and aside from those things,
Well, wait,
uh,
before you move on,
okay,
let's just make sure we understand each other. So you're saying basically that Bitcoin is not a good use of blockchain.
yeah,
Okay, that's a hot take for this show for sure.
absolutely, yeah. Uh, Again, I think Bitcoin is a remarkable technical achievement, but uh, the protocol is hash locked effectively, which means that if we do break the that 256 hashing algorithm suddenly, and mostly suddenly breaking is how it happens, then the blockchain would have a high probability of disintegrating before it could be migrated to some other appropriate protocol. And so a blockchain that wanted to do what Bitcoin is doing should, at minimum, be operating simultaneously on multiple protocols and have an internal mechanism that is attempting to attack and disqualify protocols, as well as create and certify protocols, so that it would be staying at the forefront of public human knowledge in
Okay,
cryptographic breakthroughs.
so I do remember reading something Satoshi wrote, not in the white paper, I think, but he was saying that if there's some kind of cryptographic computational power leap forward, like quantum computing, or if the algorithm is broken, which is what you've referred to a number of times. His solution, kind of to bring it back to something you brought up earlier, is we just have to kind of like agree upon like such and such block in the past was valid and everything after that is invalid. And kind of like as a community, whatever consensus we could get to, if the SHA-256 is broken, we'd have to say block 88888 is the last real block, and now we're going to start block 88889 with some new cryptographic algorithm that has not been broken yet.
Yeah, and so that gets to my second point, where Satoshi is essentially assuming a community that is a community, a group of people with at least some shared goal states, and the Bitcoin and other blockchain protocols don't have any of the things that have historically allowed human communities to exist. They don't have a popular culture. They don't have actual interaction leading to, family formation and uh, ongoing dedication to whatever cultural uh, paradigm that they include. Um, and so I don't see those things as separable from something that is as widely used and important as currency. Um, so I would say that currencies being a political money, you need the political system, a unified political system first, and that is a military and cultural and philosophical question, not a technical one.
So I don't strictly agree with what you're saying, but I largely do. But anyway, I just didn't want to
There's
put
a
the
lot of
right in there
room.
without any
Yeah,
context.
there's a lot of room for small changes to cause huge, differences. And yeah, I, I'm happy to debate my ideas and sharpen them up when and if.
What I wanted to break in with is Ethereum Classic, which is that they had the hack and they had like this thing that you described where they were like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to throw it all out, all the transactions, out and kind of start again. And so the Ethereum that we know of now is a hard fork where they threw away the early allegedly hacked transactions. But Ethereum Classic is still in existence, which includes all those transactions. And somewhat surprisingly, it has a market cap of $3.2 billion right now, whereas Ethereum is at 322. So one way to look at it might be that 99% of the freshly formed Ethereum community went along with that, and 1% uh, said no, like the transactions are immutable.
Yeah, yeah, but bear in mind, you're talking about an incredibly small slice of incredibly self-selected humanity. Um,
Right.
a currency system would have to be used by basically everybody. Like the most popularly elected presidential candidate in U.S. history got 60% of the vote. Imagine having a money system that was two money systems, one that 40% of the people agreed on and the other one that 60% of the people agreed on.
Right. And Bitcoin had its own split, what we now call Bitcoin Cash, because they couldn't agree upon how big the blocks should be, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So you're getting into DAO territory a little bit there. Those guys are starting to explore some of those ideas, and I see this as something that's fundamentally necessary for us to discuss in the halls of power of how these transfers can and will occur. There was a there was a moment, this was before things could go viral, but this was back in like 98, 99, when Bill Clinton was giving a State of the Union address. And the Y2K problem was something that seemed as if it might be serious.
Right. I remember those
And
days.
yeah, and Clinton, one of his should have been an applause line, was announcing that they had dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and that their Y2K, task force had sort of figured out what it was going to do and was going to go out and make sure it wasn't a problem. And the, joint congressional session, one guy stood up and clapped started wildly clapping his hands. And Clinton, being, good on his feet and good at being a politician, said that's probably the same ratio in this room as across the country of people that, like, understand that this is important, but
Right.
trust us, it's a big deal or whatever. And yeah, the a 300 billion market cap certainly sounds good, by my lights. But the global currency exchange flows through Chicago alone are on the order of $250 billion a year.
Sure.
So, you know, uh, 99.97% of people agree with something else. And bridging that gap and figuring out what all the actual issues are and how to uh, uh, appropriately address them is a problem we have yet to start.
So real quickly on the Bitcoin Cash, currently has 6.7 billion market cap, and Bitcoin has 1,900 billion market cap, 1.9 trillion. So just to kind of like contextualize like how these splits happen and how much of the value goes where. So as long as we're down this tangent, I'm gonna say that I agree that like SHA-256 could be broken, or something better than Bitcoin could come along and supplant it, or it could be that we just decide that the legacy financial system is good enough and Bitcoin remains kind of a just kind of a side affair. But
That I can guarantee won't happen.
in the meantime, I think that there's more than enough value to be gained from it, right? So if, for instance, you could invest $100 and 9 times out of 10, you get to double it. And on the 10th time, it goes all the way to zero. As long as you're, kind of banking some of the benefits along the way, it
Well,
doesn't
the
matter
Kelly
that the rug is
criterion.
pulled from you on the occasional 10th time when it goes exactly to zero.
Yeah. The Kelly criterion gives you a basic feature of how you should invest under those circumstances. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with? Yeah. So
I'm extremely familiar with Kelly criterion.
excellent. Yeah. So yeah, in that specific example, I think uh, just for lowered variance, the Kelly criterion would say that you could get away with investing 45% of your stake every time, and you'd get roughly the same return as investing 90% of your stake, except your variance would be smaller.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that there's as Bitcoin is an experiment for sure, right? It's like something new. I've been thinking recently a very brief history of the centralization or decentralization of money. Money was decentralized up until the Lydians started making metal coinage, and it's been pretty centralized all the way up to Bitcoin, and now we're maybe having a bit of a switch back towards decentralization.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that I would broadly there. Again, there are some nits to pick, but the biggest one for me is that I see Bitcoin as actually a recapitulation of the stone coins of Yap, uh,
Sure.
which are also a currency that was held in common knowledge among its user base. Um, Using, in fact, a gossip protocol to update the blockchain. So um, it's not terribly encouraging to me that that society didn't develop, industrialization, which might be unfair. We have essentially one example of a society that develops industrialization and runs with it. It's not the only society that ever started building engines. The Romans had engines. Um, some early dynastic Chinese appear to have some mechanical devices, but but the sort of Anglosphere and Northern European Renaissance countries managed to get industrialization off the ground. And I personally like living in, like, a spacious electrically lit home instead of a dirt hovel. So
So, going back to some of the uses of blockchain that maybe either haven't taken off or weren't aren't suitable. Uh, one that I thought could be cool but never really hit is Namecoin. You familiar with this?
I'm terrible with names,
That's okay.
actually.
So Namecoin, the idea kind of is after Nick controls all domain names. So
Right.
Namecoin was an attempt to offer an alternative, but seems to have just never hit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that again, that's an example where an entrenched bureaucracy can point to a higher degree of efficiency and protect their potentially corrupt activities in order to extract rents from the general economy.
Right,
So this gets at the cultural issue of deploying cryptographic solutions. You have to solve that problem to get people on board. And
right.
frequently, some of the people that you have to get on board are the people that you're going to be putting out of business. And they're harder than everybody else is.
Another one that was kind of a big topic back when I started getting into cryptocurrency was a decentralized Dropbox. You know what Dropbox is?
Yes, yeah.
So I always thought this was a horrible idea. It's just like I guess Dropbox was like, gangbusters back in 2014, 2015 or whatever. Uh, but I just thought it was a horrible idea. Like you have to put like pieces of your data on a bunch of different people's computers, and then like those people always have to be online in order for you to get your data back, or you have to, back it up on so many different computers that like you're using 5 times, 10 times the amount of drive space you normally would.
So there are things. Silk Road essentially works on a protocol that has traits like that, where information is being held across the network and is being addressed not sort of by where it is, but what it is. And as a result of that, the data can be broken up cryptographically and held in other people's computers so that no one person has all the information and it's sort of assembled for people that are getting it. But
Right. So I guess that would be you'd have a lot more of a reason to do it because you're concerned about being taken out by the authorities or something.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that gets to the Alice and Bob story where, Alice and Bob don't trust each other and are trying to overthrow the government and, contract assassins and manipulate marketplaces. And without getting caught by people who live inside their heads and can watch everything that they're doing. And miraculously, there are things they can actually do that work under these circumstances, that they can communicate with each other, even with a nosy postmaster, for example.
Right.
Um, but yeah, getting back into kind of the subject at hand, something like the dark net isn't a blockchain notion.
Right.
So that is a decentralized way to cryptographically soundly move information around, not a mechanism to create a common understanding about commonly, known information. And
Right.
so Dropbox would be a perfectly excellent example of something that would be diametrically opposed to blockchain, because the point of Dropbox isn't that I put something there so that everybody knows that it's there. It's I
Right.
put
Right.
something there so that everywhere I go, I have access to it.
Right. Yeah. In thinking about this show, I was also like thinking about the difference between blockchain and BitTorrent and the
Yeah, yeah.
similarities and the differences.
Well, yeah. So dark web is sort of a cryptographically secure sort of, as blockchain is like the recursively secure version of like how you log into your bank server.
Mhm.
The dark web is sort of the cryptographically recursively secure version of BitTorrent. Um, and so they're very different technologies.
Yep, yep, yep. All right, I'm going to bring us to our closing thoughts here. We've covered what a blockchain is. We've covered kind of the core cryptocurrency use cases, or we just kind of named them. Then we talked about the things that aren't so core but might be promising. Some of the things that are not core and probably shouldn't be. And we've had a lot of diversions, not diversions, along the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Little digressions. Digressions is the word I was looking for.
right. Some asides.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any closing thoughts you want to leave us with, Noah?
I think the the most important thing to understand about blockchain and the fact that, it is more than $1 trillion popular is that cryptographic integration is here and it's going to go wider. And the people that are experts are such an incredibly tiny slice of the population that we're going to have sort of our E equals MC squared moment where
Mm,
something gets it into public consciousness in ways that are sort of useful for the debate. And I I don't have a candidate off the top of my head because of how sort of technical and specific each separate one of these questions is.
mm,
Um, how you get that into a space where it can become a part of popular culture and common debate and sort of meaningful engagement.
mm.
But there's a lot of there, and whether cultural adoption of the people that are sitting on top of the existing popular solutions or entirely new solutions based on very different ideas turn out to be the catalyzing fact. Um, uh, Sort of figuring out how society works once whatever part of distrust that you can actually solve technologically has been solved. The Robert Putnam example of just how like economically and culturally and how much weight comes off of you socially, spiritually, and so on when you're in a high trust environment is extraordinary. And if we can use this technology to generate wide scale high trust environments, then that's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. I couldn't agree more that like there's so much more to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain and cryptography than just like trying to put your money into like the next meme coin that you think is going to 10x. Along those lines, I'd like to give you Medley's test of Bitcoin maximalism.
Okay.
Okay, your eccentric uncle passes away and he leaves you in his will a choice. You can either have $100,000 of Bitcoin, but it'll be held in a trust for 10 years, which time you can cash it out and do whatever you want with it. Or you can have X thousand dollars of a variety of cryptocurrencies, not including Bitcoin. I usually refer to it as like a altcoin ETF.
Right.
Something that's reasonably managed, but you don't have exact control over which altcoins you have in it. So, what is X for you, where you feel like it's about the breaking point? So the you say 100, you feel like Bitcoin is about as promising as all the altcoins out there. If you have a number over 200, then you feel that Bitcoin is the better place to put your money. And if you pick a number under 100, you feel that altcoins are the better choice. In both cases, you have to hold it for 10 years,
Right.
and at which point, after 10 years, you can sell.
Well, the game theory on currencies is that the winners win. And since Bitcoin is the largest one, I think that's the way to bet. And so I don't know. I'd need like thousands of dollars of an altcoin ETF to get away from Bitcoin.
So if you could have 100 $1,000 of Bitcoin, how much altcoin
Like
would you need?
like I don't know, 20, 30,000 thousands, like 20 or $30 million worth. Um, I'd have to look at the altcoin ETFs, but
Mhm,
basically I'd look at the average market cap and
mhm.
take the inverse ratio, and that's the number.
Okay. So you really feel like over the course of 10 years, Bitcoin is really going to stand out from the rest of the cryptocurrencies out there?
Well, so yeah, as I was saying before, currencies have this tendency to uh, go into winner take all circumstances. And so there's some very obvious political and military reasons for the dominance of American currencies around the world.
Yeah.
But
A particular society will tend to use one currency as its default medium of exchange for a
yeah,
variety of reasons. I would say probably the most amongst them is that like then you don't have to do the economic calculation all the time of like how much am I going to
exactly.
sell this for in dollars, how much am I going to sell this for in silver or whatever.
Right. And so since Bitcoin, not cash, the regular one, is the biggest, I would expect it to remain the biggest and actually tend to increase its shareness of bignesses over time, if all that makes sense.
All right, Noah, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, if somebody wanted to hire you as a consultant or anything like that, how would they do that?
Best way to get in touch with me is my email address, noahphealy@yahoo.com. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Noah-Healy there. And yeah, I'd be happy to hear from people. If any of you think that my takes are a little too hot and would like to debate them, happy to make that discussion and have my mind changed.
All right, and we'll have a lot of links down in the comment section below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe while you do all that. Thanks to Noah Healy for coming on and discussing alternate blockchain technologies. For David Medley and Noah Healy, this has been Proof of Pod. See you next week. Thanks for watching part three of our three-part interview. If you missed parts one and two, please check those out. Thanks for tuning in.